Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to tonight's panel discussion on You've Seen the Bad News, Now Hear the Good, with the Art of Integration exhibition. And my name is Amna Yaqeen. I'm a member of the South Asian Department and chair of the Center for the Study of Pakistan, which is a part of the SOAS South Asia Institute. And I'm wearing various hats today, so I'm also speaking on behalf of the Muslims Trust and Cultural Dialogue project, of which this panel discussion is a collaboration. And we recently had the viewing for the Art of Integration last Thursday, so we would have seen some of you then, and you might have heard some of what I'm going to say again, but I'm also welcoming you on behalf of the project director for MTCD, Professor Peter Mori, who can't be here tonight, but sends his best wishes. Just to give you a little bit of context to the collaboration with the Center for Pakistan and the Muslims Trust and Cultural Dialogue project. This collaboration is in its third year, and it comes out of a research grant which is funded by the Research Councils UK for nearly £500,000. Our previous collaborations in this project have included conferences on multiculturalism, Beyond Islamophobia, Journey into Europe, Islam, Immigration and Empire, for which we've worked with Professor Akbar Ahmed, and we've also done an international literature festival on cultural confluences and intercultural dialogue, and we're delighted to culminate this summer's events with this exhibition on the art of integration with Peter Sanders, and in partnership with Peter and his team and Mosaic and the Mosaic Charity, who are also, I think, not here tonight, but send their best wishes. And we are very privileged to work with Peter, and his work is testimony to some of the research that I personally have been involved with over the years, and also that the project has been involved with. In particular, it is in conversation with the earlier project, Framing Muslims, that this Muslims Trust and Cultural Dialogue comes out of, which began in 2007. And I think there's a really nice thread there, because the Art of Integration was originally an exhibition that was scheduled to come out in 2007 in the UK. And when I was in conversation with Peter, he mentioned at the time, a few years later, not in 2007, that the exhibition had been around the world, but it hadn't done a UK stint. And I thought, this is crazy. Why don't we have something that is about the art of integration, Islam in our green, pleasant land here in the UK? So it's a great delight to be able to give it a home in Brunei Gallery. And I'm so grateful to John Hollingworth in the Brunei Gallery and his team, Joy, and also other members of the team include Nena Cheku in the Centres and Programmes Office, who've been working tirelessly behind the scenes to make sure everything happens, and Alea, who's here from the Muslims Trust and Cultural Dialogue Project, and Asma, and Sana over there from the South Asia Institute. So these things, and also Aisi Mukhtar from Inspiral Design, all these various logos that you see as you walk around the exhibition. A lot of work goes on behind the scenes to put up what you see in front of you, and those are the people who you don't see, and I really wanted to take this opportunity to thank them. And there are also many others who have supported this project, including the director of the school, Professor Paul Webley, with whom I initially had the conversation about this particular exhibition and hosting it at SOAS. So just to, before I introduce you to the chair for the panel, I just wanted to mention that our work intersects with public debates about intercultural dialogue and questions of trust. It aims to explore how trust is created and how it can be nurtured, to empower groups utilizing mechanisms of civic engagement, and to provide those involved in political political and social policy making with a greater understanding of the communities with whom they connect, and how trust and dialogue can make communication more informed and effective. And I think that this exhibition through the format of art is very much about intercultural dialogue, and I hope all of you, if you haven't seen it, will take an opportunity to go and see it while it's on from April to June. And just to remind you, the late night viewing is on Thursday. The gallery is open until 8 o'clock. And now I am delighted to welcome today's panel, and I will introduce you to our lead discussant and chair of the panel, and I am delighted to introduce Abdul Rahman Malik, who is an award-winning London-based journalist, director, educator, organizer. He is programs manager for the Radical Middle Way. He works alongside grassroots partners in the UK and around the world to provide powerful, faith-inspired guidance that gives tools to enable change, promote social justice for all, and combat exclusion and violence. Since January 2015, Abdul Rahman has also taken on duties as director of the Insight Film Festival, which celebrates, exhibits, and encourages filmmakers throughout the world to make films which explore faith. Abdul Rahman, I'd like to invite you to welcome our distinguished guests who have all travelled from different parts of the country to be, and outside, to be with us today. And thank you very much for being here with us and for sharing this.
Thank you, Amina. It's a real pleasure. And to recognize the work that Amina and Dr. Peter Mori have been doing through the MTCD program. I've watched it from afar for many years and been really excited by the amazing outputs, and particularly the light that they've shone on particularly Muslim cultural output has been really remarkable. And so it's a great honor for me to kind of preside over the panel today, but hopefully extend it out to you as a form of discussion. So the format tonight is going to be pretty straightforward. We have an action-packed, high-powered, impactful panel. 5 heavyweights to take us deep into the world of all things positive, exciting, and inspiring. We'll hear from them in turn, and as we sort of go to them in turn, I'll introduce them so it feels more like a conversation, but it is a conversation. So once we hear from the panel and maybe pick up some of the salient points that they've brought out, we'll come to you, and I'm not going to come to you for only questions because that would be really boring. Comments, concerns, disputes, alternative points of view, they're all welcome, and we want to keep this as free-flowing as we possibly can, and really bring out hopefully some of the good stuff. But I want to start with Peter, because it's his exhibition that has brought us together, and I may call Peter Abdulazim, so I hope that's okay, because that's what I'm used to. But this, I think what excited us so many years ago about the art of integration was not just the pictures that we knew would be brilliant and beautiful, but was your journey. This was going to be a journey into the very heart of British Islam, to uncover some of those beautiful places that are often obscured, some of the stories that we otherwise wouldn't hear about, and just wandering through again and experiencing the exhibit again downstairs. That's the feeling that came back to me, that these are snapshots, these are portraits of a vibrant, beautiful tradition, community, history that's alive, and whose stories actually we need to hear more about. And I'd love for you to speak about what this journey has been for you, because it's been a long journey. It's been in your mind's eye probably for decades, and then to see it now take various iterations, and now to be here at the Brunei Gallery with the republication of the book is just terribly exciting, because hopefully it's bringing it to a new audience. But I'd love to hear about that journey and what you found on that journey, and looking back on these maybe 10, 20 years of work that you've done on this exhibition. Is there 1 or 2 stories that you keep coming back to and say, that's why I did this?
Assalamu alaikum. This project really came out of me. Well, I've been travelling a lot for about 35 years, so I thought I needed to do something a bit closer at home. So to do it in England seemed a good idea. It really came about asking the question, what does it mean to be British and a Muslim? And that's how the project started. And then how was I going to give it a face? Because the media was already giving it a face, which I felt was not true. It was creating stereotypes. So I naively thought, okay, it's a 40-day photographic shoot. I know some friends, and 5 years later the project was kind of finished, and I'm still doing it. We added about 10 more pictures to this, and it will grow. I mean, there are so many more things happening. I mean, I was very keen that there would be social projects, because I think that's really the direction we should be going. America's kind of ahead of us in that way. There's the free clinic in LA, they do a lot of soup kitchens, and now I'm starting to hear of soup kitchens. And I heard of one in Bradford, but I didn't have the chance to go. And then I did a search, and there was Sons of Adam doing their soup kitchen. They've been doing it for 3 years. We arranged to photograph it, and they fed 200 people that day. And a lot of these are serious homeless people. They don't like having their pictures taken, so it was a challenging photograph to do, but I felt it's important. And that came to me because when I was doing this in America, I did a presentation. I met this girl, a hijabi girl, and she told me that she was working in an office when 9/11 happened. And when it started to filter out into the media that they thought that it was Muslims that had done this, the feeling against her in the office became very, very antisocial, to say the least. So much so that her manager said to her, I think you should go home, because people were getting upset with her. She went home and she was crying and she didn't know what to do. She said, I was so distraught and I felt I had to do something. So I decided to go down to the site of 9/11, and I went to the people and I said, can I help? And those people embraced her. The moment she stopped thinking about herself, the situation changed. So I do think the key to a lot of what's happening is for us to get outside of ourselves a little bit and start doing social projects, be aware of what's happening around us. There are a lot of people in need in these societies. There is a veneer that everything's all right, but if you scrape under the surface, there's a lot. And I think the important story for me was Lady Evelyn Cobbold. She's the first English lady to perform the Hajj, as far as we know, in 1933 at the age of 65. And her story is amazing. You should research it. Her father was a diplomat. She travelled a lot around the world, and she went to Rome, and they said, would you like to meet the Pope, as they do in certain circles? So she went to the Pope, and he said to her, are you a Catholic or a Protestant? And she said, I'm a Muslim. She says that's the first time she ever admitted to herself or anybody that she was a Muslim. So my question is, does that make the Pope a witness to her Shahada? And then she got permission to go on Hajj, and I met her great-grandson. We filmed him for the documentary. He had all the letters that he sent her, and she did the Hajj with the permission of King Faisal at that time. And she had always asked to be buried on her land. They had a large estate up in Glencairn, and she asked in her will that she would be buried where the deer could roam across her grave. So when she died, it was the worst snowstorm in 30 years. And the grave diggers had been digging the grave all night because the earth was so hard. And so her funeral bier was led by a bagpipe in kilt and everything, bagpipes, and the imam from Woking Mosque. And they got to the site, and he said, I think it's in the wrong direction. But then they checked it was right, and she's buried there. So we went to film with Naveed, and again there was a great snowstorm, so I had to plough through the snow to get up there and move away this snow from her grave. And there's a silver plaque which has the light verse on it. Allah is the light of the heavens of the earth. And I think she's a saint. I mean, it's you know, you can visit her. It's a beautiful place. So there's so many stories. This project really endeared me to England in more ways than I can imagine. I met so many amazing people. So anyway.
Do you feel that for you that this is an initiative that is continuing to unfold? And what are potentially some of the directions that you feel that you might not have had a chance to go in, but are feeling like you're going to now?
Well, we're going to launch, inshallah, so we're hoping to launch a photographic competition. And we're hoping to get Fuji on board to do a competition on integration. Integration with any form, not just Muslims, but any integration, because it's an interesting and important topic. So we're hoping to launch a photographic competition, and young people can donate their pictures. Hopefully they will have seen the exhibition and get inspired. So that's one thing we're hoping to do.
That's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's interesting because you come at this topic with a sense of personal history. And then a sort of sense of professional history as well, because in a way, through your lens, since your very first engagement with Islam, the lens has been a way of sort of capturing those moments. And the gentleman who's sitting next to you, in many ways, has also captured many of these moments through the contemporary history of the Muslim community in the United Kingdom. And for many of you will know Sheikh Babakar. Sheikh Babakar was for many years a staff and one of the imams at Regent's Park Mosque, and later became the resident imam at the Islamia schools, which were started by Cat Stevens, Yusuf Islam. During that time, Sheikh Babakar's work has spanned the work of charity, teaching, both spiritual teaching and otherwise, and a lot of travel. And now he is the head of an organization, a charity called Ufa Aid, which is specifically dedicated to work here in the United Kingdom. And one of the really successful and exciting initiatives that he and his team have pioneered over the last few years is an institution which many of us know and love, frankly, called Rumi's Cave, which is really a genuine third space where music, art, culture, spirituality, religion come together. And I think that's really only been possible because someone like Sheikh Babakar has been there to kind of push the envelope of Muslim expression and Muslim space. And I think it's a good segue to come from Abdul Azim to you, Sheikh Babakar, because in many ways you've also been witness to the ups and downs of the community, but so much of what you've been doing over the last few years has focused on the positive. And one of the things that really excites me about Rumi's Cave is that whatever crisis may be going on out there in the pages of the Telegraph or the Daily Mail, I can always kind of come to Rumi's Cave and find a space of joy and expression. And I'd love for you to kind of speak about that, not just in the contemporary, but looking back in terms of a lifetime of work in this community.
Assalamu alaikum. To be honest with you, being a Muslim living in this country, to me personally, is the easiest way to live as a person of faith. I lived in Mecca, I lived in Medina, I lived in Egypt, I lived in Sudan, I traveled in many Muslim countries, and life sometimes is difficult. In my early days when I came here, I wanted to go back. The only reason I wanted to go back because I didn't feel a part of the culture, because to me, in order for you to live anywhere, you must feel a part of that culture. But the moment I lived here and I started working with people, I went back to Sudan and I said to my mother, I'm going back. She said, where are you going? You are in your home. He said, I'm going home. And she said, it's strange. You always wanted to stay and I tell you to go, but this time you wanted to go back. I said, because now I have something to hold on to. Yeah. From the early days when we came, Central Mosque was just a house. In 1972, 73, yeah, it was just a house. And the people who used to pray there, and they come to a house to pray because they need the place to come together. Not really for praying, but they need to see people, sit with them, eat with them, share with them. And in 1977, when the mosque was completed and built, it became one of the most important monuments in this city to me, because we go there and we sit, and there are very few people who come to pray. But my interest really became more focused when I used to see the native people from the area of St. John's Wood coming, walking into the mosque and asking. And I remember my first time, I could see those elderly North African brothers were hushing them out. And they were not able to speak to them, and they can't speak to them, and they were asking them to leave. So I said, why are you asking them to leave? So when I spoke to them, they said, want to look at this beautiful, magnificent building. So I took them in, sat them in the middle of the foyer of the mosque, and we started speaking, and they said, just want to know about this place. So I started speaking to them about the mihrab, okay, where the imam leads the prayer, the minbar where he stands to give his sermon, and then about the dome, and explaining to them about why it is being made like that, and talking about Sinan in Turkey, and the magnificent, okay, the blue mosque. And from that time, a lot of them started coming to the mosque just to have a tour. So I became the tour guide. I was a student in university. I left my college. Seriously, I used to come from home, stay. If I have a lecture, I will come. Sometimes I don't go. I just stay there. Through that, I used to get people come in buses because they were so excited. I remember once, this lady, very old lady, ran her daughter in Wales and said, you must come and see this place. They came with a little bus, was 37 of them. I made them tea and coffee, and we were sitting eating inside the mosque. And there was no kitchen, there was no da'wah center, there was nothing. The Kibadawi, may Allah bless his soul, he said, whatever you want to do, just do. So that is where I believe was missing from the community before us. When we arrived here, I came about 40 years ago. And even now, the young generation, which is very frightening, find even in this institution there are kids who are cutting themselves away. That is their way, this is our way. Lakum dinukum waliya din. For you is your religion, for me. This is nonsense. I always think of my example as Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If he was sent as a mercy to the world, not just the humans, even Jibreel, when he asked him, am I included? He said, even you, Jibreel, included in this mercy. So every creature is included. And mercy literally is to show by act of doing good. Not just by saying, thank you, or excuse me, no. It's by doing good to that person. So, subhanAllah, we have seen in this society a lot of the people who want to know, they want to share. Do Muslims visit their neighbors? I don't think so. Do Muslims interact with the non-Muslim in the way they should? I don't think so. Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in his first example of this, he called Uthman ibn Affan, the third Khalif, his son-in-law. Ta'ala ilayya Uthman, come to me, Uthman. And the Muslims were oppressed in Mecca. And at that time, some of them were beaten up every day, bleeding. Even Abu Bakr Siddiq, he said, alayka bis Sudan. I would love for you to travel across the Red Sea to the land of those who are darker in color. Alayka bis Sudan. All that is called Sudan to the west of Africa. And when he wanted to leave, he said, وَخُذْ مَعَكَ رُقَيَّةً. Take with you your wife, Ruqayya, my daughter. And when he wanted to leave, he said, Ta'ala ilayya, come back again. Anybody who want to leave and they are able to come physically and they don't have the means because you are a rich man, take them with you. But remind them to take their partners, their wives with them, and if they have children. So they came, 11 men, 4 women, few children. The only advice he gave, go there, anything you find in that land, carry out, except that which will be contradicting to what I'm teaching you. But anything else. And for example, if I'm telling you not to drink, don't drink. If I'm telling you not to eat pork, don't eat pork. But the rest, enjoy your life. And they came and they lived their life. They joined in everything. Travel today in East Africa, you find the most enjoyable Islam. Everybody is living together. Everybody is feeling the brotherhood of Islam. And what I would like to say to all of you, all of us think brotherhood today is your brother in faith. No. The most important brother to you or sister is your brother in humanity. For Rasulullah says, none of you is a true believer or have faith unless you love for your brother what you love for yourself. Don't tell me you love for your brother to have a car or a house. He will die and leave it behind. Only people will fight over it for inheritance. But the best thing is to want them to be saved in the day of judgment. How would you like your brother to go to hell?
One of the things that occurs to me as you're speaking, Sheikh Babakar, is that in many ways you sought to model this in an institution.
Yes.
So in a place like Rumi's Cave, and certainly in the work that you did at Islamia schools, which was, I mean, I saw you in action there all the time, and it was amazing what you were doing with those kids. But now I feel like you've created this amazing space where exactly what you're describing, what your concerns would have been with the community, that it's like totally changed.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what excites you about it, but the whole thing excites me.
I used to speak to Abdul Azim, I used to speak to a brother called Dawood Rasaoil, to Muhammad Isa Wali, I used to speak to Guy Eaton, and we used to speak like brothers, and we used to talk about things. These are elderly natives. When I traveled to China, I didn't see Arab building. I didn't see Chinese dressed in Arab clothes. I didn't see in Malaysia or Indonesia Arabic dress. I saw Malaysian culture. I saw Chinese culture. So what I felt, Islam in this land, for it to survive properly, and for the people of this country to find that the Muslims are responsible enough and carrying their role as citizens, that we should embrace the good culture of this land. So Rumi's came to me as an idea whereby I wanted the Muslim to have the British culture. There are a lot of British cultural issues that are beautiful, and we can carry them and we can embrace them. And I remember with Abdul Azim, we used to talk, if we can have a meeting and we discuss these things with Dawood, with Muhammad Isa, that one day the British native Muslims must be leading this. Otherwise, we will have Pakistani, Bangladeshi, African, whatever. And to me, a lot of people, when I ask them, especially when I go to schools to give assemblies, people think Islam as a religion is either Pakistani or Bangladeshi or Somali, the culture that they are dealing with. In many cases, some of the people think it is the curry or the couscous that they eat in the restaurant, rather than the good morals that Islam is beginning to bring to people. So I think Rome is a small little thing, but really I wish that a lot of the younger generation who are in this institution around this place, those who are born, I wasn't born in this country, they will realize that this is their home. You are a British person, but you are a Muslim. And your Islam is not your prayer or your fasting. Your fasting, your prayer, your charity is between you and God. The Prophet said, do it and while people are asleep. But what we would like to see from you, that your behavior is embracing, is showing mercy. Somebody rang me only last night, born in this land, a very affluent young businessman. I was having a debate with some people. Am I allowed to pray for non-Muslims? I was so sad. I was really sad. I said to him, if you don't pray for those who do not have faith to save them, as you believe that without faith you will not be saved, then you have no mercy. And your prophet is the prophet of mercy. I said to him, my best example is Jesus, son of Mary. Here, Allah is telling us in the Quran, his people navigated away from his past by taking him as God, or son of God, his mother as God. God will ask him in the day of judgment, did you and your mother ask them to take you as gods beside me? He says, oh my God, oh my Lord, if we did, you will know. But if you punish them, they are your servants. Do whatever you want to do with them. But if you show them mercy and forgive them, you are often forgiving most merciful. That is my way. Not my way from myself, but from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Talking about young people, and particularly the demographic of Rumi's is very urban, very street, very West London. I want to go to a different sort of place where young people gather, and I want to go to Imam Munawar Hussain, because as you work with young people who are really urban,
Yes.
Imam Munawar works with a different kind of young people. Imam Munawar, as many of you know, and he's featured, one of the individuals is featured like Naveed and like Sheikh Babakar in the exhibition, in Abdul Azim's exhibition, is the Imam of the Muslim students at Eton College. I may remember when that first happened, there was a lot of brouhaha about it and talk. What's going on at the most British, at the most English of institutions? But over the years, Imam Munawar's leadership has been demonstrated time and time again. And he's oft relied on for advice, whether it's matters of faith or interfaith. More recently, he's been part of something called the Oxford Foundation, which is doing some really incredible work, he was telling me earlier on, in terms of addressing some of the real issues that are affecting the communities now. And I'd love for you, Imam Munawar, reflecting on I think the theme tonight, which is finding the places of good news and excitement. You must have hundreds of stories of good news. Whenever I see pictures of you and your students, they seem bright and intelligent, and they're ready to take over the world, like all Etonians, of course, want to do. They have become part of the master race. No, just kidding. But I've always been intrigued by the mechanics of what you do. And what are the things that you find in that place that inspire you and have continued to inspire you? Because now you've been there a long time. You're not something new anymore. You're an institution.
Thank you very much indeed for this wonderful gathering. I was looking through my birth certificate. We're talking about homes, or home, where is home? My parents, of course, Weymouth came and settled in Berkshire. And I discovered that my birth was registered at Eton.
Wow.
And then I subhanAllah, and then destiny or fate, whatever you might call it, took me to Eton to become the Muslim tutor. I mean, it's an amazing place. It's played an amazing role in the history of this country. But for me, I think young people are my passion. And you mentioned Sheikh Zaki Badawi rahmatullah. He was one of those people who I came across in my life. At a point in my life at which I had loads of questions. This question about where do I belong and where is home? How does one integrate? How does one maintain one's identity? And he was the one who just said, look, you can be British and you can be Muslim too. And for me, I think the starting point for us should be that our identifier when it comes to media and so on, we should be identified as British citizens first. That we love this place, this is our home, this is the land where we belong, to which our loyalties lie. And the challenge, I think, from our faith is, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
How are you going to respond to this wonderful place we have, where we have freedom? We have the freedom to practice our faith, to live out our lives. We have free education, health, and so on. And the question is, how are we going to respond? And I think how we respond is through Islam. That dimension of Islam that's been forgotten. Everything that we do, make it beautiful. And that's what the Rumis